Silver Society.
Welcome to the Silver Eye Society podcast. You're about to tune in to a spicy episode about a spicy character.
This is an emergency alert. This is an emergency broadcast.
I wish, man. I wish I could embody Alex Jones' energy. And we will try as we carry on. Oh, God. Yeah, you can't do it. You can't do it. You need to, drink heavily for 20 years and know things that you shouldn't know to be able to get that level of, distress in your voice.
I'm halfway there.
All right. Well, maybe this episode will take us the full way because we both have a lot of thoughts on the documentary Alex's War. So this is a documentary that came out, last few months. Director, I think, is Alex Lee Moyer, something like that. I like to give credit.
Conspiracy?
Even though I thought so too. I was like, an alliance, secret alliance. It's a great documentary. It's actually visually beautiful. I want to give a special recognition to the soundtrack, which is really important. Did you notice there's a part where there's a weird organ soundtrack over Alex Jones speaking? And it's just fucking A+, incredibly good. So it's a documentary you should watch whether you care about Alex Jones or not, but you should. And we do. We're going to talk about Alex Jones.
We're going to ask the question, did the New World Order fund this documentary? Yes, no, maybe, absolutely, impossible. That's the first thing we're going to have to address. Correct. I mean, yes or no?
The globalists. I love him. I love it. The thing is, he's a character and he's an excellent character. And so there's a lot to say about this. Okay, so we're going to talk about conspiracy theories, the value of conspiracy theories. We're pro-conspiracy theory here on the Silver Eye Society because we are pro-free speech, which naturally means you're going to have some conspiracy theories eventually. But my particular beef with this whole situation and the increasingly hot water that surrounds Alex Jones is that it follows the same pattern that a lot of anti-free speech efforts follow, which is, this is dangerous, and we want the benefits of free speech without actually dealing with the inevitable unpleasantries. So let's reverse really quick, right?
Yeah. Because I personally think that I'm a little concerned that perhaps you and Klaus Schwab have gotten together in order to try to stop the word of the podcast. The word of the podcast this episode. See, who knows? I don't know for sure. You could be in cahoots with Klaus.
I think I'd be doing a little better in life.
My new docudrama is called Cahoots with Klaus. Okay, so word of the podcast, guess. It's Conspire.
Oh, Conspire.
Conspire, late 14th century, to aspire or plan maliciously, agree together to commit a criminal or reprehensible act, from the old French conspire, Latin, don't need to get into it, but here's some deep etymology. Comb, with or together, C-O-N, con, we know that, you Spanish speaker, yeah. Con means with, right? Spirare, to breathe. So to conspire, if you break it down, actually means to breathe together. Perhaps on the notion of to agree by spoken oath to commit a bad act.
Do you wanna?
I thought the World Economic Federation or whatever had taken down the stream. I was lost.
Well, to conspire. So why do you pick the word? Let's go. Let's get into this.
Well, because obviously conspiracy theory. But what I'm actually going to talk about is a little complex. My thought, and these are just thoughts. I'm not giving you any of the truth. I'm just throwing things out there. We're just talking. My thought is that built into the functioning of our modern government, our modern systems of governance, everything, not everything, a lot is by default a conspiracy. It's not necessarily bad, and it's not necessarily malicious. But should we plunge right into this, or do you want to...
Go right ahead. Okay. What do you mean?
So look, what I mean by this is something like this. I think that the link between the representatives of democracy in our country and the common people has grown looser throughout time. And because of this, a lot of major decisions are made, quote unquote, behind closed doors amongst experts in their field of whatever it is they're dealing with in an increasingly complex world. And therefore, by default, a lot of the decisions that are made in a conspiratorial manner, but not necessarily maliciously, though I actually think some are done perhaps maliciously, perhaps. That is one of the fundamental problems that I see in the year 2022, is that we keep talking about ourselves and about our country and our culture in America as a democracy, which I think that it still is. But in order to elaborate on this, I actually have to go to a text. I brought the documents, as Jones would say. And this is from The Revolt of the Elites by Christopher Lasch. Do you mind if I read a short passage?
I don't.
This is about journalism. It's at the beginning of the book. Many of the best people, as they think of themselves, have always been skeptical about the capacity of ordinary citizens to grasp complex issues and to make critical judgments. Okay? Hold that for a moment. This is about the early progressive era in America, around Woodrow Wilson, a little bit before that, and about a particular character who was very famous back in the day, named Walter Lippmann, and his ideas about what journalism should be. Now, stay with me for a bit. The purpose of journalism was not to encourage public debate, but to provide experts with the information on which to base intelligent decisions. I'm skipping around a little bit because I'm not going to read an entire chapter of this book, but just hold these things in mind for a moment. In Lippmann's view, substantive questions could safely be left to experts, whose access to scientific knowledge immunized them against the emotional symbols and stereotypes that dominated public debate. So, now, to bring this together, there was a change, historically, a change in viewpoint that I think people only now are really starting to grapple with and understand. And it doesn't require conspiracy theories to understand it. If you actually know the history and you read the writings of people, I brought the documents, then you'll understand this. And it goes a long way to fueling people like Jones and as a reaction to it. Because it is the concept, and it does come out of the progressive era of America, that you need specialists and experts to tell the truth, quote unquote. And Lippmann himself said the truth and facts, they're not the same. But to essentially, in a complex world, to interpret the news and to serve it to people. But it's not a debate. It's not a debate. And this is where this reaction from people like Jones and other people, and myself also, I'm on the more populist side of this. There's this problem because you get, and you saw it especially within COVID, the idea of follow the science, the experts. We're just going to tell you what it is for the greater good or whatever, even if it's not always true. And I think there's this misunderstanding amongst a lot of people who still think that a lot of journalism and what Jones and others would call the MSM, mainstream media, that their point is to have a debate. Now look, here's the thing, the final thing. When the internet came online, something fundamentally happened that was a problem, because you had forums and you had comment sections. And now you had the people, the unwashed masses, talking back to the reporters. And if one will recall, many of those many news sites actually shut down their comment sections because they don't want that. That's not the point. You're to be told what is, They don't want your voice. And people like Jones still has this older American mindset, which I endorse, which is, can't we talk about that? Can't we, even if we're wrong, which I actually agree with people like Lippmann, that a lot of people will be wrong. A lot of people will come up with crazy ideas and conspiracy theories and factually wrong things. But I think that's the healthy thing. I think that's the necessary thing. I think that if we want to continue to call ourselves a democracy, we have to do that, and we have to take the good with the bad and the bad with the good.
Well, if you want to have true equality in a society, that's the prerequisite. That's the problem that I find so hypocritical with this elitism that pervades institutions like journalism, is that there's this fundamental belief at the core of the way those institutions functions that believes that they are superior. If you believe that regular people cannot consume information, have discourse on it, and make their own decisions, then you believe that you are superior and that they are inferior. How would you have an equal society if you hold that belief? You shouldn't. And so if we truly want a society where individuals are treated as equals, despite their stature in society, despite their wealth, despite their background, all of that, then you have to believe that people are equals. You have to treat them as such. You can't treat them like children that are being lectured to in a classroom. And that's how much of the media functions now.
You can, but you have to actually be competent. And this is the problem, okay? And this is the problem. Because there is a part of me that understands and can totally grasp this concept. In an increasingly complex world, not everybody is an expert on vaccines. Not everybody is an expert on climate science. Not everybody is an expert. Pick the thing that pick whatever subject you want. Not everybody is an expert on that, okay? And these people were saying, I want to really hammer this home, because this is something that I put together with watching this documentary and then going back to this book and remembering. Again, from this book, 1922, Public Opinion by Lippmann, he said that mass man function as a bewildered herd who must be governed by a specialized class whose interests reach beyond the locality. The elite class of intellectuals and experts were to be a machinery of knowledge to circumvent the primary defect of democracy, the impossible ideal of the omnicompetent citizen. So that makes sense in a way, because the idea of an omnicompetent citizen is a kind of like aspirational dream. We aren't all experts on this or that, but here's my problem. Here's the problem with this whole thing. Today, you see this on social media, especially the Pfizer vaccine guy, Borla. I don't remember what his name is.
Borla,
something
yeah.
Borla. He came out and he got COVID today. Hope you're better. And then people were taking these past tweets of his and saying, showing, it's like, oh, the study shows 100% preventative against COVID or whatever. And then contrasting it with his tweet today is like, I've been vaccinated 4 times and I got COVID. There's a shortcut of thinking, which is very useful and powerful in that juxtaposition, which I admire. But there's also this fundamental problem. When the people that you're supposed to shut up and listen to are wrong, it's not that they conspired necessarily. Could have, could not. It doesn't even require that, though. It just requires them not being very good experts. It just requires them not being perfect at their job. Then you've cut off the populace from being able to speak back, to talk, to have a debate openly. And you've made yourself a clown. Or at least you've created the possibility of an image of yourself as a clown. This is what's untenable, and this is what's then going to, it's a real problem. It's a real problem that I'm not sure that I don't know how to fix it.
Well, what I see as the problem in that is the coupling of human fallibility. These people are going to make mistakes eventually. You're going to be wrong eventually. But the problem that makes it unforgivable to the populace is the inability to admit when you're wrong, and worse, the doubling down and the belittling whilst being wrong. It's that coupling of condescension, arrogance, and refusal to admit fault that just destroys trust in that figure, that organization, that institution. And so here we are now. And this comes back to what I got from this movie, Alex's War, which is it seems that he became a target more when traditional sources of media were failing. So as people turned away from the mainstream media, as credibility was destroyed in our institutions and trust fell overall, Alex Jones suddenly became more of a target. And you see this in the film. You see the timeline of when he had that Sandy Hook incident where, yeah, he got it wrong. He's going to get shit wrong. He's probably got a lot of shit wrong. He's been getting shit wrong. And it hasn't been egregious yet. No one has really batted an eye at him getting shit wrong. But years later, after he supported Trump, now this became an issue. This one thing that he was wrong about. And it's like he's paraded through the media, the same mainstream media that is currently hemorrhaging followings and trust. Suddenly he becomes their main target and this boogeyman. And it's a very interesting part of the film where they show all these media pundits criticizing him. And you have like, I think it's like Anderson Cooper maybe, and you have John Oliver, and you have all these people, and it's just like, yeah, establishment approved figures. And there's something, this is probably the most important part of the movie to me, of what I took away from this, which is something that I have been sensing and seeing the timeline play out and all the clips of the media coming out against him and disparaging him. And suddenly the environment that he was in, you know, the way he was treated, changing from this kind of like, that's that conspiracy guy, to he's a threat. We need to do something. That change is crucial because something changed. And what is it? Because it didn't change when he was on about Sandy Hook. That's actually not when it changed. It changed later. Changed during Trump. And
yeah,
that,
it's not a... Oh, sorry.
well, yeah. That change to me is probably the most important part, because I think that we see the same thing that we're seeing with the misinformation, you know, scaremongering, and all these the same playbook of this speech is doing harm, misinformation is dangerous. Suddenly we need to come and save you. Misinformation has always existed. You know, there have always been people that have been wrong. There has always been conspiracy theories. It's only dangerous, it's only a threat when people actually are turning away from the establishment messaging. It's very clear that once people, the trust has been lost, and now, instead of trying to rebuild that trust, it's let's shut down any other sources that people could turn to instead.
Where do you want to go with this? Why I think they turned on Alex Jones or other things? Just briefly on that. Yeah, I think it's clear that they did it because he did help popularize Donald Trump's presidency in 2016 in a major way. Trump was on Jones' show at least once. There were a bunch of other figures that were involved in the Trump world that would appear on his show. This isn't complex. That's when they went after him.
Well, that's
they didn't care.
Really,
you go look at the documentary. Jones was harassing George W. Bush at a press conference. He was yelling at him about the New World Order and all that. No one cared that much. I think that the main difference was, number one, I think that it's like this. Number one, he kept getting more and more popular. Number two, he became associated with the Republican Party during the Trump candidacy in 2016, which then provided the impetus for a lot of people in a political way to attack him because of that. And because this all rises up during the time of the internet and people being able to talk outside and around the mainstream media. So I think all that comes together. And then also, to be fair, he brought it upon himself to a degree.
Yeah, for sure.
He clearly, and I said this before, started drinking a lot. He was, whatever was going on in his life, he got
sloppy,
more and more stressed out. He became, and there is, look, I think something else needs to be said about him as a figure. There is a bit of the fortune teller thing. It's I don't want to say anything bad about him because because enough people have. But something should be said. You can predict the future 1,000 times, especially if you do a radio program 5 days a week for years, okay? And you can be wrong a lot. You can be wrong, pick a number, 99% of the time you can be wrong about things. And then over the course of years, though, you can be right about some things. And then people can go back and selectively, they can do it both sides. They can selectively pick out only the things you were right about and say, look, he predicted the future. Or they can selectively go back and pick out all the things that they were completely wrong about and say, look, this person's a moron. That, neither of those are necessarily true, but they're also both true at the same time. And there is a kind of, anyone who really, like, I mean, he is a performer. And I think this documentary does a good job of showing that without being mean to the guy. You know, he's a performer. There's that. And there is a little bit of the street preacher kind of, he is that to some degree. Now, I think that's a very American thing to be. And I defend it even when those people are wrong.
I find it delightful. I find it absolutely delightful because I am not an idiot or a loser or a child, and I am not threatened by other people being wrong. This is the change in our culture, is that people have become so fragile-minded and so neurotic that they cannot tolerate other people being blatantly wrong. It does not do anything to me. I have never cared, even when I was like, you know, more of a leftist or whatever, it was never, I never cared about someone being that wrong. Like, it just, I don't find that valuable. Like, I don't think that that's a good, healthy characteristic. And I also think it's incompatible with any free society. You simply cannot be intolerant of people being outspoken and wrong. That's their right. Because if you want to be outspoken and right, then the prerequisite to that is people inevitably being wrong and outspoken. And so it does not bother me at all. It's I genuinely find delight in it. Like I've watched the whole documentary. I watched him be completely crazy and shout about the globalists and, you know, Hillary Clinton is a demon and all that. And to me, it's like, I don't really enjoy that kind of rhetoric, but I laugh. I find it funny. So I don't, you know, this thing of like, oh, it's harm. The argument is that then someone takes that and actually does something. Okay, then put them the fuck in jail. Have them be responsible for their stupidity. We do not have other people be responsible for the stupidity of other adults, because then we are not an adult population anymore. When people are not responsible for their own actions as an adult, we are not a society of adults. And then we can expect to be governed in different ways as a society of children or lesser than beings, which goes in with what you're saying, this idea that people cannot handle information and should not be able to participate in a discourse about information. It ultimately infantilizes the population.
Yes, but I'll take the opposite view for a moment. Does it infantilize the population, or are there parts of the population which are prone to believe anything at all and will sometimes act on it? And there's one moment in the film which I think highlights the true potential danger of some of this. There is. The filmmaker did a good job of showing this. It really hit me. In the documentary, he's there during January 6th, leading a crowd around or whatever, right? And there's this moment, and it's an important moment, where he tries to tell, at least according to this documentary, what you see, and I've seen the footage, I think that it's accurate. He tries to corral the crowd that he has led up to the Capitol building. And it's a terrifying moment if you've actually been in a crowd that's frightening. He stands up on some piece of, I don't know, whatever, a wall, and gets his bullhorn out, and he's like, turn around, I'm not going to try to do his voice. Tries to tell people, turn around, walk away. Because he, I think, starts to get it. Oh, shit. This is getting out of hand. This isn't now the radio show anymore. This is real life. Now there's people on the street. This is real. And I swear to God, this is one of the most terrifying moments I've seen on film for a while. And we've watched a lot of scary movies. The crowd just looks at him blankly. He realizes he needs to turn a mass amount of people around, but in physical space, it's different than when you're on the radio. It's different than when you're on a podcast. It's different. Now you're leading, I'm not going to say a mob at that point, but you're leading a large group of people physically through space. And you see it too. He realizes things have gone far, and he can't turn them around. He can't move that mass of people back away from a situation that is becoming chaotic. And that is where it has to be admitted that there can be real danger in, well, I'll put it as neutrally as I can. There can be danger in leading large groups of human beings.
I'm fucking sick of it. I'm fucking sick of the double standard, because it's no problem if people want to spend their entire lives online talking about, oh, we live in a fascist state. The police are trying to kill Black people every day. Women are getting raped every day. Everything, the whole system is a patriarchy that's out to kill brown bodies. All of this highly inflammatory rhetoric that is incredibly militaristic and aggravating comes from the left, and it's activism. It's fine. Let's make a flag for it. But when it's not the left, then suddenly this is really dangerous. We need to be really careful. People are gonna get hurt. What the fuck happened in all the riots? There was kids that got shot. That's not right. Okay, if a bunch of adults want to put themselves into a situation, that is their responsibility. And just because you followed someone there does not absolve you of that responsibility for your own life. Perhaps you made a bad decision. That may very well be the end of your line. You made a bad decision, but it was your decision. I refuse to absolve people of their individual responsibility anymore, because it's ultimately just becoming an excuse for authoritarianism. That's what it is. The more we go on.
I agree with you. And I think that the problem was that during the riots in 2020, we'll have to do part 2 on this, but so I'll finish this up briefly to speak to that. So largely, a lot of people weren't held accountable for those demonstrations that sometimes turned into riots, mostly peaceful protest. And in fact, to be fair, there are many occasions where powerful people bailed them out, right? And so that is a double standard, and it is, I think, also to some degree led to what happened on January 6th, is it?
Absolutely.
Right. I think it is. I think that it is. And that hasn't been reckoned with, and I'm not sure that it will. And I think that I think there's another thing that needs to be said about this that is unpalatable, but it's that during those riots, a lot of the people that were harmed during them were actually just common people. And a good deal of it actually happened in poor neighborhoods. And so the reason the difference is that the people in power didn't really fucking care. Now, what's different about January 6th is that went straight to the heart of power. And now
we have
all of a
AOC
sudden
crying on Twitter that, oh my God, my life. Oh,
well, now they
your
care
life.
because it's...
What about
Right.
people that were burned alive in their fucking grocery stores that they owned? The child that was shot in the head in the Chaz in Seattle, while whoever the mayor was like, it's the summer of love. Yeah, exactly. The double standard, I'm not going to play into it anymore. I'm no longer interested in hearing about, this dangerous rhetoric and, this is going to make people do something bad. Oh, now you care? I'm not interested in it. So you know what? If we're going to live in the goddamn Wild West, then we're all going to live in the goddamn Wild West. Both sides of the parties. So that's where I'm at. Like, do I like Jones's rhetoric? Do I like, there's something actually a bit tragic about this film. When you see these masses of people that are so gripped by politics, it actually always makes me sad. I always find that there's something, like, on the one hand, I feel like, look at all these people. They just love their country. They feel like they're doing something good. But there's something tragic about it. And there's something very human in a flawed way about Jones that also makes me sympathetic towards him. But at the end of the day, this is, he gets painted as a threat, but the people that are doing the painting, it's not a two-way street for them. Like, the threat is very clear that whatever threatens their security, their ability to control the narrative, that's the threat. What threatens your local neighborhood, your safety, sorry, that's the price of justice. So I'm done with that.
I agree with you. It's just not going to play out in a very nice manner.
No, unfortunately, it's not.
It's not. And I honestly, a lot could be salvaged if some of these, in particular, some of the media organizations would actually just do a mea culpa and say, you know what, we got some things wrong. And, but they can't. They're locked into their thing. It's not going to matter. Like, there is a double standard. There's no doubt about it. You have people from CNN like masturbating on Zoom calls and they still have a job. You have people who said the vaccine was going to prevent COVID and they've had 50 fucking vaccines and they're got COVID. And there's not anyone, if someone with some standing, it wouldn't take much. It would just take a few people to say, we were wrong about a few things. But they won't.
And that's why you get the growth of conspiracy theories. It's that drives the desire to say, see, they're not telling the truth. What else are they not telling the truth about? So there you go. You get to choose. Either you are forthcoming and transparent, or you breed an increasingly paranoid, conspiratorial populace. And to your point, then that means it's necessary. That actually means that the conspiracy mindset is necessary, because when these headlines, when these organizations, when these institutions continue to be caught lying, then how the fuck could you say that a conspiracy theorist is the danger? They're doing their fucking job. So I endorse Alex's war. We're pro conspiracy theorists over here because it's just words, folks. And you're still responsible for your actions.
Klaus Schwab has worked with Zoom to create a problem for us.
Wrap it up, or shall I?
You go ahead.
All right. Thank you for watching this conspiratorial broadcast. If you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, don't care. Like it anyway. Be a radical. Do the opposite of what you feel. Join the Civil Rights Society. Nonsense. Who cares? Whatever. Doesn't matter. The sun is going to explode tomorrow. The sky is purple. Oh no. Misinformation. Are you okay? Okay, good. Then you are fit to join the Civil Rights Society. So see you on the next episode.
Emergency alert. The sun is not going to explode because the earth is flat and we live inside a flat earth, but also inside of a sphere that is somehow hollow. Everyone knows.